Hey guys, this is Steven. Welcome to the History of FMW podcast with Bahu. This is where we go through the history and the eventual downfall of FMW year by year. On the last episode, we had covered the first half of 1990, and we had to split it in two because so much had happened in the beginning and the end of this year. In the beginning, in the first half of the year, Onita did battle with Kurisu Kendo at Nagasaki, Ricky Fuji, and the recently debuting Mr. Pogo. And where we left, he had just started a feud with Tarzan Goto, which ended in an empty arena match. Now, Bahu, in the empty arena match, can you just kind of go over what was the immediate fallout after the match, and where did it lead as far as angles?
It was to put over the Onita Tarzan Goto feud. They had brawled all over the building, but there were no cameras or anything. It was just photography, and so people in the magazine saw this bloody brawl all over the that went outside and everything like that. No one actually saw the actual match other than reporters. So it was to kind of build up to the upcoming. Onita versus Tarzan Goto match. That would be a no ropes exploding barbed wire match in August.
Awesome. Now, on July 16th at Kurokan Hall, Onita would main event with a KO victory in a different styles match over Katsuji Ueda. Who was this?
He was a kickboxer. He had previously, he had pretty much competed in kickboxing competitions throughout the 80s. He was in his 40s or so at this time already, and he he looked like a legit badass, and he had been knocking out mid-carders throughout, since he had started in FMW at the beginning of the year. So this was just kind of a way to, have Onita beat him and just kind of show that Onita was even, a bigger, could take out anybody. And he also ended up getting a job with Onita. He ended up being Onita's bodyguard as Onita got more and more popular.
Now, this show has 9 matches on it. The previous FMW shows have all been 6 or 7, some of them, 4 or 5. Is this a sign that the roster is growing?
Yeah, I mean, just as time is going by, they're able to fill out the roster more and more. Their dojo students are coming along. Onita is bringing in, foreign talent and just so it's just all kind of coming together at this point.
You write that Onita seems to have a large following of women. We applied in this.
So pretty much what it is Onita's kind of has, like, at this point, he has like an underground badass bad boy type feel to him, and so FMW is starting to gain popularity with women. More women are coming to the shows, and Onita actually starts pretty much bringing as many women as he can back to his hotel. He would sometimes book hotel rooms in the same hotel with 3 or 4 women, and sleep with them that night, and then go over to the next woman's room. And so he pretty much just started gaining a playboy kind of gimmick there, which everyone ended up finding out about.
I can't wait until we get to the point where Onita enters politics. But anyway, so just for note, the rest of July had several large shows with Onita, Pogo, Ricky Fuji, Goto. They're all in the main event in tags, trading falls. I'm curious, is Pogo using the weapon style he became famous for?
No, he's not using them yet. He's just working straight matches or kind of street fight style matches. But he's not. He would bring in the weapons when he would come back after competing in Wink.
Cool. And just to let people know, I follow lots of current Japanese shows, and the average attendance, you see shows with DDT, BJJW, and they're drawing, 800 for spot shows. The FMW brand was drawing 1,500 to 3,000 in like second tier cities. It's awesome to go back and read how popular this was. So Bahu, without wasting too much time, what was going on with the July 22nd show?
So Onita was coming up with ideas on how to pretty much stand out and be different, and so he held a show in the middle of a sea. So they set up pretty much a canvas out and about 100, 150 feet or so away from kind of shore, and set up a ring and everything, and brought the wrestlers to the ring on a boat, and they competed in in the ring with the water right next to him and everything. So it also created spots where wrestlers were throwing each other in the water, and they had a battle royal where wrestlers were throwing each other, dunking each other, fighting each other in the water and everything. So it was to stand out. It was to be different. New Japan and All Japan weren't doing things like this, so Onita was just trying to come up with anything that he could think of.
Also on the show, Ricky Fuji would win this some type of large gimmick battle royal. Is there any reason why Fuji was chosen to win after he had already been eating pins for the past month?
It was a comedy. It was just pretty much most battle royals, especially in FMW, are just comedy, and they don't really mean too much. So whoever wins them there's not really that much value to them. But it was just to kind of get him a win. And also Onita and Goto, they were feuding at the time, so they would be the most them being the two top stars, they would have been the most logic to win it, but since they were feuding, they eliminated each other, and they they were fighting still in the water. When they got onto shore, they were still chasing after each other. So it was just to kind of further along the feud between them, so that they couldn't win. So Ricky Fuji was just kind of next in line.
Cool. Now, also on this show, a wrestler named Ultraman debuts, and he sticks around for quite a while. Who is this?
That's Damien from, most people would know him from WCW, but Mexican wrestler. They brought him in around this time. Ultraman, very famous superhero character in Japan, and they just wanted to kind of draw attention with just kind of bringing a beloved character on the show.
Cool. Now, what angle is being run with the female talent?
So at this point, last episode we talked about how Magnificent Mimi was brought in, kind of be the sex symbol, kind of be the top girl, but they kind of realized that they had Megumi Kudo to pretty much be able to have that role and she's already there. They don't have to fly her in or anything. So they decided to turn Kudo face at this point. She was with the other All Japan women wrestlers, Combat Toyota and Raiben Amada at this point, and they came in as heels to feud with the other FMW women, but they all came in and they were beating down on the FMW women rookie wrestlers, and Kudo kind of started to have sympathy towards them and kind of try to stop them from overdoing it and abusing the women wrestlers. And then when she tried to stop them, they attacked her, and that set up the feud between Combat Toyota and Megumi Kudo.
Awesome. Now, somewhere in this time, Lee Gak-soo won the AWA Light Heavyweight Championship. Where did he win this belt at?
He won that from Jimmy Backlund back in April, on April 1st at Corrigan Hall. Jimmy Backlund, who I don't even believe had ever wrestled in AWA, but they just kind of figured nobody's going to know that, and they just wanted a light heavyweight belt established. So they just gave the belt the name, the AWA light heavyweight title. I don't think Vern Gagne even knew about it, but they just gave it. They pretty much had Backlund have it just to lose to Lee Gak-soo, and so that Lee Gak-soo could compete in light heavyweight matches.
I'm just curious, but is there any legal in theory could Vern Gagne have sued them for using the name AWA?
Probably, but I think they knew that he wasn't going to at this point. I think AWA was also on its last legs, and that it wasn't going to go after a promotion in Japan. And I mean, they might have even reached a deal or something like that to have permission somewhere down the line. But I think they knew, that AWA had bigger concerns at that time.
All right, cool. I've always been curious because they'll have characters like, Spider-Man versus Batman on some indie show, and I'm like, I wonder how all of that works there. Anyway, on
Yeah.
August 4th in Tokyo at the Shio Dome, Onita faced Goto in the first exploding no-rope barbed wire death match. So to me, this is not the birth of FMW, but this is what FMW is definitely known for. So very quickly to go bit by bit, what was the Shio Dome? I've never heard of this arena.
It's not. It was actually just a large area right next to the Shiodome subway station. Shiodome is a location in Tokyo, and pretty much it was just a big, large area of gravel that they could set up chairs and that they could hold the show outside, put a tent over the ring, and because at that time they weren't going to be able to hold a exploding barbed wire match inside an arena, so they held it outside right there, and it was a giant area.
Yeah, for those who didn't see it, go online and definitely watch it because it looks like it's in a shopping center or something. It's very cool looking. You kind of said it earlier, but when did this match first become being hyped up?
Pretty much when in June when Onita and Lee Gaksu had well, in May they competed, and then afterwards they hugged and celebrated, and in June they decided to team up, and then Tarzan Goto got really upset over Onita teaming up with somebody else, figuring he was the number 2 guy, he should be teaming up, so he got upset over that and turned heel, so that because they knew, in 2 months or so they were planning on having a big show in August, so they wanted the number 1 guy Onita taking on the number 2 guy Goto at the time.
Cool. And uh, was this idea of this match, was it based on anything else? Is there any precursor to this match?
Not that I know of. I mean, I think it's just Onita coming up with the idea and just trying to. I mean, and we will get into this later. He's just trying to one up himself over and over at this time, and this was kind of the first one up of, okay, we've done barbed wire at Corrigan. Let's see what we can do as far as pushing the limits and having a bigger, for the bigger shows.
One thing I've always wanted to know, and as it went on, the explosions would get bigger and bigger and bigger. But how do they do these explosion matches?
So pretty much they just tie up electricity essentially to the barbed wire. So they'll just pretty much they tie it up, and once it's touched, the pretty much the spark, or because at this time it's very low, so the spark will go off when touched.
If you could quickly, how is this match? If you want to give a quick review of it, and how does the media cover this?
At the time, it was a really good match. I don't think if you went back to watch it now, I don't think you would think it's a classic or whatnot, just because it's been done over and over, with more explosions and one upped and everything. But at the time, this just wasn't, this was something remarkable, and so seeing these explosions go off and everything, and it was a really big deal at the time. It was one of the things that really did put FMW on the map. It got front page cover in the newspaper. It got the covers of both Japanese weekly magazines. They had covers of the match. It ended up winning Match of the Year in the press. So it was a really big deal at the time. But if you go back now, I'm sure you wouldn't think it's anything special or anything like that. But at the time, it had never been seen before.
And at 4,520 people, is this FMW's biggest show so far?
Yeah, it would be the biggest show, because especially with the fact that it was outside, they could put down as many seats as possible and bring in. So there wasn't really, limits like most of the buildings that they had been running.
And one last question that you might not know the answer to, but I think you have a good idea that people always ask. In Japan, it feels like there's much more freedom in doing the death matches, especially indoors with explosions and glass and all of that. Are there any official rules on regulating wrestling?
As far as death matches go and whatnot?
Yeah, because I mean, I've never heard of a there are certain buildings you can't do fire, But the
Yeah.
I mean, FMW is doing the barbed wire, the explosions. Later, the glass comes in. Is there any body controlling what these guys can and can't do indoors?
No, I mean it's just gonna be the buildings themselves. Like you said, fire's not allowed at Corrigan Hall or Shinkiba. They won't let them do explosions at the Shinkiba first ring. So just specific buildings will not allow it, and and it's got to be a large building to hold to be able to fit a ring with exploding barbed wire. They got to put things in. So they kind of have to speak with the people that are as far as the building goes. They got to speak with them, but as most of the time it's okay. It's just no one's ever really gotten hurt from it or anything like that. So it's whatever.
And just for history purposes, the reason fire got banned at Kurokin was in 2000. Shadow WX got lit on fire, and he ran through the crowd, burning people in the crowd. So that's why that happened. Megumi Kudo, they had a bloody street fight with lots of weapons. Now I've watched a lot of AJW from this time period, so it's not like women bleeding was new, but was this type of street fight, was this still a new, shocking kind of thing?
Yeah, and this match it got over. It's actually kind of what put Megumi Kudo on the map. And they pretty much just brawled all over the all over the arena, throwing each other in chairs and everything. And yeah, that hadn't really been seen with women before. So it was kind of like Kudo was, kind of wrestling like Onita, wrestling that kind of style, and not just a straight match. So yeah, it was definitely different than what All Japan women were doing at the time.
Just to jump ahead a little, and I hope I'm not screwing it up too much, but at the end of the year, FMW, they would do an entirely women's show. Do you know when the planning for that show started?
Probably about 2 or 3 months earlier. I think Ryben Amada knew she was going to retire and that they wanted to pretty much dedicate the show to her, and because they wanted to have her wrestle her retirement match be the one of the last matches, and just kind of the show dedicated to her. And with Onita, if that was just a regular FMW show with Onita, he was going to kind of take over the star power of the show, and she'd be kind of overlooked. So they decided to have just an all women show, filled in with all the wrestlers on the show.
All right, cool. I just wanted, and we'll talk about it more later. I just wanted to ask about it now. So, at this time period, Dave would first write that FMW has booked Sumo Hall on October 19th for their 1-year anniversary, and this will be the same day that AJPW will run Kurokin, and SWS, which is run by Tenryu, will run Yokohama. Did FMW know the market would be this crowded when they booked Sumo Hall?
Probably. I think that they just knew that their audience was so different, so it doesn't really matter. People that are going to SWS or All Japan Women, they're not going to FMW. So it was just kind of our audience is different. We can book a show on the same day, have big competition, and it's not going to matter because our fans are going to come to our show regardless.
What does it mean for FMW to run a Sumo Hall?
Well, at the time they were planning on just this being the big show of the year. It's, Sumo Hall was, is best known for, New Japan shows and everything. And they wanted to kind of be at that level because they were drawing so well. They figured they could run, this building and kind of put their stamp on the market of, look, we ran Sumo Hall. We did really well. We're in this. We're a legit contender against New Japan and all Japan, So it was just kind of put their mark on, in Japanese wrestling at the time.
Cool. Now, just to ask, I see FMW is running a lot of these short shows and kind of, in outdoor lots and gyms. Are FMW promoting these shows, or are these more of the sponsored shows?
They're running the shows. Usually if it's just a regular tour show where it's 7-8 shows in an 11-12 day span, that's usually just FMW running those shows. It's the sponsor shows are usually kind of out randomly picked like a week after the tour ends or something like that. Those are usually the sponsored shows. So you kind of just tell based off of just where the show lines up, where, if a show was held, yesterday and there's a show tomorrow, then chances are, that's just a part of the tour that they're promoting.
All All right, and does FMW have any corporate sponsors at this time?
They're no, not really. They're Onita has, he's getting his name out there and everything, and he might be getting sponsored. But FMW really didn't have too many sponsors. They might have, like I said, they might have sponsors for a specific show or something like that. But at this time, there's no like commercials or anything like that or ads really for FMW.
Awesome. On August 20th, the main event of the show would be Onita and Asako defeating Ricky Fuji and Mr. Pogo, but this was the last time that Fuji and Pogo would team for quite a while. What was this match like, and what was the angle that came from it?
It was a bloody brawl, just kind of the standard Onita match. Ricky bladed for the show, and so afterwards, Onita defeated Ricky, and then Onita gets on the mic, and he pretty much wants Ricky to join him. He wants Ricky to, Ricky kind of had earned his respect fighting in that kind of style of the match, and so Ricky and Onita shake hands, and Ricky turns face after this show, and actually Ricky tells the story. That after he turned face, Mr. Pogo went into the locker room, the heel locker room, and threw out all Ricky Fuji's bags and everything outside the locker room and threw it outside, and as if it was real. So Ricky gets back to the backstage and he sees all his stuff gone. It's been all thrown out because Pogo was pretty much taken, being a heel there, and regardless of even though no one even knew about it.
Also on the show, Goto defeated Gran Mendoza in a death match. Out of curiosity, if it was just listed as that, what would be a death match?
I believe this match actually was a no rope barbed wire death match. I think at the time when I was translating it and pulling up the results and everything, I think there was some kanji I couldn't read or something like that. But I've seen the match since then, and it was a no rope barbed wire death match.
Okay, cool. And also, quickly, who was Gran Mendoza?
He was a Puerto Rican wrestler. At this time, they began working with, had a relationship with Victor Quinones, and he was just one of the wrestlers brought in to compete on the tour.
Great. On August 21st, 1990, the main event was a battle royal won by Akihito Ichihara. Who was this, and why did he win?
Again, it was just kind of, as far as winning, battle royals were just kind of comedy gimmick matches that had no real meaning on who won. And so he was a rookie at the time, and he would later become Flying Kid Ichihara. He would join Tarzan Goto when leaving FMW. He was also Onita Jr. at the time, and then he came back and wrestled undercard matches until the very end of FMW.
Awesome. And so at this time, Mr. Pogo is the main rival, and this would build to their first singles match at Kurokan Hall on August 25th. Now, I've seen probably 15 or 20 Mr. Pogo Onita matches. What is this first match like when you think of Pogo running his blade across his belly and stuff? What is this match like?
So this match is pretty much just them brawling in the crowd. It's actually a really short match. It's not very good. They did, like I said, they go into the crowd and they brawl there, but Onita pretty much just brings them back into the ring and beats them clean. So it's kind of an interesting way to start a long-time feud, but at the time, just Mr. Pogo was really just brought in as just some guy that Onita was just going to beat, a big guy that had a name, and Onita was just going to beat him. And so that was just kind of the plan at the time. But as time goes by, it ends up Mr. Pogo was a natural rival for Onita.
All right, and now we're going to enter kind of a big section. This is probably the most famous part of 1990. On August 20th, we're going to go back a week. On August 20th, Dave would write that Onita had the idea of going to Puerto Rico to meet with Jose Gonzalez, and on August 27th, he reports that he is indeed going to fly on August 29th. So for those who don't know, quickly explain who Jose Gonzalez is.
Jose Gonzalez was Invader 1 in Puerto Rico, and he's most known for getting in a dispute with Bruiser Brody backstage and pulling a knife and stabbing him, eventually leading to his death that night. So he is very, very disliked. Many people hate him, and he is probably the number one enemy of all time in pro wrestling.
Um, whose idea was this, and what was the just kind of run us through what is the idea behind this whole angle? Whose idea was it? Etc.
This was all Onita. Yeah, this was all Onita. So again, Gonzalez is hated. Everybody hates him. Everybody loves Bruiser Brody. He's a hero in Japan. And so Onita figures, okay, everybody hates Jose Gonzalez. I'm gonna set this up to where bring Jose Gonzalez in, and then I'll beat Jose Gonzalez, and everybody will love me for avenging Bruiser Brody's death. So it was pretty much a way to capitalize on what happened in 1988 when he killed Bruiser Brody, and essentially it was just for Onita to get himself over.
This is complete speculation, and you don't have to say anything, but was there ever any fear that the Japanese mafia was setting Jose up and he wouldn't wind up leaving after this match?
I've heard that. I don't think that was part of Onita's plan. I think that there is possibly a chance that if he had been brought in, that something would have happened to him. But I don't think Onita had that in his mind of, oh, I'm going to bring him over and he's going to get it if I get him over in Japan. I think Onita was just thinking, I want to beat him. I want to be the guy that beat the man that killed Bruiser Brody.
All right, cool. And so on August 29th, he actually goes to shoot this angle. Run us through what happens in this angle.
They start off in a hotel room, and to sign the contract, and Invader 1 actually attacks Onita and pulls out a knife, just like how he did with to kill Bruiser Brody, and he pulls out a knife and stabs Onita with it, and it only went about an inch and a half in. So, Onita's not really in any serious danger or anything like that. And so, they get pictures of all this. They have Onita on the ground being stabbed. They take Onita. Then Onita goes to the hospital to get stitches for the stab wound, and the first hospital says that wound's just not deep enough. We don't even bother. Just leave. We don't. There's no reason for you to get stitches or anything like that. It's a nothing cut. And so Onita has to go to another hospital that finally agrees. Okay, we'll give you 2 stitches for that wound. And so they're stitching him. And again, magazine photographers are following Onita as all this is going on and taking pictures. So it looks like they see Onita. They see, so the magazine people reading the magazine see, Onita having been stabbed, the blood. Then now he's at the hospital getting stitched up. So it looks more than what it really was, which was just an inch and a half wound from a knife.
So what is the reaction like in Puerto Rico?
In Puerto Rico, I don't know if it was even really too much of a story, because it was more of just, it wasn't really picked up in Puerto Rico too much. It was all in Japan that this story got out and everything, but there was no real issue. Onita didn't deal with any issues, or nothing really came of it while he was in Puerto Rico.
All right, cool. And what is the immediate reaction with the Japanese press?
They hate this. This totally backfired on Onita. They are seeing this as Onita is trying to capitalize on Bruiser Brody's death. They are, he's working with somebody that's despised. So Onita takes a big reputation hit after doing this. So it totally backfired on him.
And there's also a story that Onita lost his passport. Is that real?
Yeah, so he actually lost his passport while he was in Puerto Rico. He blamed he blamed it getting stolen by invaders so that he'd have to stay in the country, to possibly be attacked. So he turned it into a storyline, but he actually did lose it, and he had to go through customs and have to file all this paperwork to be able to leave the country. So he wasn't actually able to leave the country the day he was planning on it.
And in the immediate aftermath, Dave, a lot of the info I'm getting is from Dave because Dave covered this extensively, and he soured on it too, obviously. But sometime during this and the next few weeks, he would write that Mr. Pogo would make a statement to the press. Do you have any insight into what he said?
I think he was just trying to clear himself because he was a part of the angle. He was there in the hotel room when Jose Gonzalez attacked Onita. So I think he was just trying to clear himself. Oh, I had nothing to do with this. This wasn't my idea. I was just doing what I was told. Just pretty much just trying to stay away from. Oh, I had nothing to do with this because it was such a backlash at this time.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the ECW angle where they it crucified the Sandman and Raven had to go out and apologize. Everyone pushes it a little too far, I guess. Very quickly, one man who would be involved in this, who we'll be hearing a lot more of, is Victor Quiones. If you could run down who was Victor at this time.
He was a part owner of WWC promotion in Puerto Rico. He was a promoter. He was a foreign talent. He had brought in a lot of the foreign talent to FMW. Onita had began working with him. He had pretty much began working with FMW backstage. Helping them with booking, helping them promoting, helping them. So, like I said, helping them bring in all the foreign talent. So, he pretty much became a staple of the promotion, pretty much on and off for about 7 years or so.
And then he'd also go on to work for Wing and IWA, right? Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Immediately, what talent does Victor bring into FMW immediately after this?
So around this time, he brought in Mike Awesome, the Gladiator, and he was the reason behind Mr. Pogo coming in. And he had brought in, like I said, Graham Mendoza. So pretty much a lot of the foreign talent were coming in through him, essentially, at this point. Anyone from the South, anyone from Florida, anyone from Puerto Rico, this was through Victor Quiones.
And if you haven't seen him, he's this hairy, sleazy looking guy. He's great at his role. I've always loved Victor and seeing him on tapes. Just very quickly, Dave mentions at this time that SWS, the pop-up promotion run by Tenryu, they're hoping to replicate FMW's video sales. What are FMW's video sales like? Like, are they surprisingly well?
Yeah, they're doing well. Like I mentioned, most VHS tapes around this time were $100. So if you get someone buys it, it's a lot of money just for one right there. So they were marketing towards Onita. They were marketing towards the deathmatch style. So they were doing really well. And SWS, which was a startup promotion from Tenryu, after leaving All Japan, it struggled. It didn't really work out too well. So they kind of struggled all the way through, including videotape. So they were, they didn't really establish themselves as something different like Onita and FMW were able to do. So people weren't really clamoring for kind of like an All Japan light type show when there already was All Japan or New Japan or FMW, which was completely different at the time.
Cool. And on September 20th, Onita is pinned in a tag match by Pogo. As far as I can tell, this was Onita's first loss, right?
No, he had actually lost twice because he lost the first ever show against Ayagi on the very first FMW show, and then he had lost to Tarzan Goto in the tournament back in January of 1990 to put over Tarzan Goto. So
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was his way of putting over Pogo so that they could set up a singles match at the end of the year show.
Cool. And on September 25th, FMW would hold an AWA light heavyweight title tournament in Nagoya to 3,000 plus people. The tournament would not have Lee Gaksu. There were again 3 first round matches and only one semifinal match. FMW has some weird tournaments at this time. Can you make sense of this one?
It was three, like you said, three first round matches, and then one of the winners of that match had a bye, so that one of them went to the finals right away, whereas the other two had a semifinals match. So it ended up, so it was just to pretty much they didn't have time to hold a whole tournament and everything, to fill out the whole show since it was just undercard. So it was just a way to get through the tournament as fast as possible. So they gave one of the wrestlers a bye and everything, so there wasn't 6 or 7 matches having to do with the tournament on one show.
And why wasn't Lee Gaksu there?
I think at this point, I'm trying. I believe that he was kind of probably not on the tour or something like that. I think they kind of were phasing him out at least at this point, and they had moved on to I believe Ricky Fuji was around this time and challenged him for the title. Ueda. So they were just kind of moving on from Lee Gaksu at this point.
Okay, cool. Also during this time, Mike Awesome debuts. He's doing some 2-on-1 squashes. They're really putting him over as a big monster, which is great. And also, Onita made a trip to Russia. Why?
He wanted, just kind of like how he brought in the South Korean guys. He now had kind of a fascination with the Russian judo fighters. He had gotten in contact with Grigory Veriktashev, who was a judo a bronze medalist in the 1984 Olympics in judo. And so, again, this was more of a legit badass kind of guy. And so Onita wanted to bring him in to begin touring with FMW. And he needed, he needed a tag team partner. So pretty much Onita went there to bring in several of the fighters in Russia.
Awesome. And on October 1st, FMW ran a show in Nagano, headlined by Onita versus Mike Awesome in a chain match. Is there any notes from this show or this match?
Not too much. This was the very first tour of Mike Awesome on the show. So he was really just kind of brought in to be a big monster and defeat everybody, and then lose to Onita on the final show, which was this one. And he got over, and so they kept bringing him back.
Cool. And at this time, the anniversary show is officially moved. It will not be at Sumo Hall. It's going to be November 5th at Olympic Stadium. Why was the show at Sumo Hall canceled?
When they allowed FMW to book the show, they didn't know really what FMW was. They thought that it was just a standard promotion like New Japan and All Japan, and then they found out, they have wild brawls all over the building, and Sumo Hall kind of had a prestige to it, and they were not about to let wild brawls, blood everywhere happen in their building. So they took it out. They canceled that booking once they found out what FMW was.
Even now, when BJW runs there, they can't use glass. They can use cinder blocks and barbed wire and blah, 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 but they can't use glass even to this day. Now, what was the Olympic Stadium?
It was a 8,000 seat building in Tokyo. It was also it's also pretty much a big giant auditorium. There was a big swimming pool connected to it, so it's just a big Olympic size kind of building. That one side of the building, there's a 8,000 seat arena pretty much connected to it.
Cool. And this show being canceled or moved, is this seen as a big blow to the FMW image?
No, there wasn't too much anything to it. It was just kind of, FMW is not going to run Sumo Hall because Sumo Hall and FMW really are two completely different things. FMW isn't really a Sumo Hall kind of promotion. So it was kind of, thought of as, there was no real negativity towards it. It was just really, FMW is not the kind of promotion to run Sumo Hall.
I can just see if this was Paul Heyman, him just on a mic screaming that they don't even want to run Sumo Hall, So for the next tour, a foreigner named the Mongolian Mauler is brought in. Who is this guy?
He was just an American independent wrestler. He kind of had looked like a monster pretty much. He had contacts to where his eyes were completely black, and he had just kind of wrestled all throughout the states. And so again, it was just one of those Victor Quinones kind of contacts that, hey, come on, you want to come to Japan and wrestle, but he didn't really get over too much because they never really brought him back after this tour.
Cool. And so finally, that leads us to the November 5th anniversary show. Just to go over the card of note, Combat Toyota would beat the Beastie the Road Warrior to be awarded the first WWA Women's title. Who was Beastie the Road Warrior?
She was a Glow wrestler at the time in the 80s, the women's promotion Glow, and she's actually on the Glow TV show that's going on currently on Netflix. So she's one of the actresses on it. But she competed in that. That was the only promotion I believe she really competed in, though, back in the 80s before FMW.
Why did FMW use the WWA name for their titles?
It was an established name. It wasn't really an established name, but it was another name out there that made people think that it was established. They thought, this is a Mexican promotion. There's prestige to these titles. These titles have been around because they figured nobody really knows anything about WWA. I mean, there's really not that much about WWA even to this day. So it was just kind of, hey, this promotion, fans are going to think this promotion's been around for 20 years in Mexico, and these titles have prestige when really they were created for FMW just with the WWA name.
There's so much smoke and mirrors going on. It's awesome. On this show, the Russian talent make their debut. What is their role on the card, and what type of matches are they doing?
The different style kind of fight matches, judo, where just to get over Grigory Richthofen, because Onita knows in 1991 that's one of his main guys he's going to compete against in matches. So it's just pretty much just to get him over.
All right, and in the main event, Onita would defeat Mr. Pogo. What type of match is this?
Another one of those street fights. It was a Texas death match. So they brawl all over the building, and even after Onita pins him, then there's still the 10 count and everything like that. And they juice some blood everywhere before Onita finally defeats Pogo, and they shake hands afterwards.
Awesome. Now, of note, Dave would write that Red Bastien is in attendance for this show. Is there any type of relationship there still?
Yeah, pretty much just he was management at the time still. He would kind of a figurehead more. He would just be brought in because he had a name in Japan and kind of like, a type of president role of, he's the matchmaker, even though he's just really kind of getting pulled in and everything like that to the shows. So it really was just kind of, like you said, smoke and mirrors, just, hey, look, this is our president. He's an established name from America. And, they're pretty much, Red Bastien is pretty much just getting paid to fly over to Japan and make appearances.
Are any FMW talents being booked in other federations?
At this time, no. There weren't really that many other promotions at the time as well. So at this time, there's Universal which is, kind of the luchador style. None of the wrestlers really fit that role. All Japan, New Japan, there's no way anyone was going there. SWS. So it was, at this time, in 1990, it was you wrestle for your own promotion. There was no, interchangeable, I'm going to work here, anything like that. This was very, this is your home, you're going to work here, and that's it.
Well, I was thinking about, Red Bastien getting guys booked in, like, Texas or something.
Oh, yeah, well, they would work as far as America goes, but, like, those are the foreign talent and everything that were just being brought into FMW. But, so, like, Mike Awesome, he's leaving Japan and he's working America. He's, working in Florida or, things like that. But as far as the FMW talent, they're staying in Japan. not working any other shows. But yeah, the foreign talent, they would go, they would work in their hometowns or anything like that. They just couldn't work anywhere else but FMW while contracted with FMW.
All right, cool. And this is the show where they announced that in December they're going to do the all-female show that we talked about earlier. Very quickly, the end of the November tour sees more Russians coming in. Any notes these talents?
Like I said, Grigory Vertashev was just the main one. They brought in another guy, Boris. I don't even know how to really pronounce his name. Grokoli, something like that. Really complicated name I can't pronounce very well. But, it was just in case they wanted, they brought him in to take pinfalls if they wanted Onita to win that match, because they didn't want to beat Grigory yet, knowing that they were going to have a main event feud in 1991.
They're going to do a show at the Green Dome in Sapporo. There's going to be another 8,000 seat building. Nothing to really ask, but I just think it's awesome. It's just so cool watching FMW grow week by week by week by doing this series with you. On December 22nd, this is going to be the all-female show in Shizuoka, and it drew 2,900 something fans. So I think that's a really great turnout. Is FMW putting on this show themselves, or are there any outside sponsors or outside promoters?
This was FMW itself, and like I mentioned, they wanted to have Raiden Amada retire. They didn't want Onita to kind of still, have a men's show where this is just it would just be a regular mid-card match otherwise. And they felt she deserved more, so they put on a whole show dedicated to women. They also had a bunch of FMW women debut on this show from their dojo, in undercard matches, and then. Like I said, they had the retirement match for her, so to send her off.
Very quickly, who was Raven Amada?
She was Raiden Amada was one of the All Japan Women wrestlers that came in with Megumi Koto and Combat Toyota from All Japan Women. So when they came in together back in March of 1990, they formed their own group called the Outbreakers, where they were attacking the FMW women wrestlers because they were saying, we're legit wrestlers, we're real wrestlers, we're from All Japan Women, we're better than these FMW green women wrestlers that aren't really that good. So like I said, they started off as heels, and then once they found out Megumi Kudo was kind of the star, she had the looks and she had the talent, they kind of branched her away from them, and Amada and Toyota were feuded with her, but they still, like I said, FMW respected Amada because they, pretty much, Onita really love these three girls, and as we go on later, when Megumi Kudo and Combat Toyota retire, you see what Onita, you'll see how much Onita cares about them. Well, this was Amada retiring 6-7 years before them, so again Onita wanted to give her the proper send off, and because he just really respected these three women.
Very quickly, where was the other women talent for this show coming from?
It was all from FMW. Like I said, they had Dojo Girls debut on this show. They had brought in Despina Matagas, who was working. She was a foreign wrestler for FMW at the time. They had brought her in, and then the Megumi Kudo, Combat Toyota, and Raiden Amada. So they just filled out the whole card pretty much with their women.
Cool. And now I remember what I wanted to ask was the reason that these girls left AJW. Did it have to do with at this time AJW, they had a retirement policy of if you were 26 or 28 or 30, you were done?
No, because they weren't at that age yet. So it was pretty much All Japan Women just had an influx of talent. So many girls were coming in that they could afford to get rid of girls if they didn't see the proper amount of improvement, because at this time Aja Kong and Manami Toyota, they're becoming stars based off their work, and they just felt like these three girls weren't improving the way they should, so they just could get rid of them because it didn't matter. At the time, hey, we're the only women's promotion. It's not like it's gonna affect us if we drop whoever, because there's no competition. No other girl's gonna go to another women's promotion.
All right, and also, you brought her up. Tarzan, Goto's wife, Despina Goto, she would defeat Megumi Kudo in the main event. Was she a wrestler before this?
Yeah, she had worked all over. She had been trained by the fabulous Moolah, so she was one of those women that Moolah brought around the United States in the early '80s. She worked in Memphis. That's where she met Tarzan Goto. So she had established a name and everything. And so when FMW brought her in, she was kind of known as one of the top women wrestlers because she had years experience, she had a name, and so she had a look as well.
Does Goto speak English?
Yeah, so it's pretty much, it's the standard Japanese wrestler that learned English, but so it's English is his second language, and so especially like I said, they met in Memphis, so he spoke it well enough to be able to converse with her, obviously, but it was still his second language. And I actually have a story about them. About 5 years ago, Despina actually contacted me trying to get in touch with Tarzan Goto because they had 3 kids together, and after their divorce, they had no contact for 20 years or so. And so Despina was actually trying to get in touch with him so that so that her kids can see their father, because it's been so long, and she wanted him to see how their children had grown. So she got in contact with me, and we worked together for a couple months to finally find somebody that had Tarzan Goto's info, because Goto is pretty much the last 5 years or so, he's been kind of hiding and not really in the limelight or anything like that. So we were able to get in touch with one of the Japanese magazine columnists, and who had Goto's information. And so Despina called Goto to tell him about her children, the children they have together, asking for him to come by and see them, but it never ended up happening.
Wow, that's an insane story I wasn't expecting. Can you share what is Goto up to now with 1990? Onita would win the Tokyo Sports Wrestler of the Year, and Onita versus Goto would win the Match of the Year for their first Explosion match, and a few of the women's matches also plays in the awards. Is there any political resentment from the larger companies that maybe this smaller guy is eating their food here?
Not at the time. I think I don't think they were too concerned about FMW. So it's kind of like let the small, they're small, they can have this for now. But as the years go by, you notice that FMW stops winning these awards and everything like that. It was kind of one of these like, oh, we'll let they're okay with this now, but if it had kept going on and on, where Onita's winning the MVP every year and an FMW match of the year is happening, then there would have been an issue. But 1 year, this new startup promotion that's kind of set everything, pretty much changed the landscape of Japanese wrestling. It was okay for this 1 year, and most people like Onita, that like I said, Giant Baba really respects Onita. Antonio Inoki, gets along with Onita. So Onita was a very well liked wrestler. So it was accepted. But if it had kept going and going 4 or 5 years, then yeah, there would have been issues.
All right, cool. And to finish the year, FMW, they've got shows booked well into 1999, and they're at this point printing money. I mean, in their first full year, they had 3 shows over 5,000 people. They had 2 shows over 7,000. They're doing a lot of sellouts in Tokyo. They're doing lots of big business. This is maybe a dumb question, but I'm just curious. With hindsight, could FMW have done any better than this first year?
Probably not. I mean, the only thing that really was the negative was the Jose Gonzalez, Bruiser Brody attack angle, because that got a lot of negative reputation with Onita. A lot of people that liked Onita really didn't like that, but I don't think that it really affected them too much in the long run. I don't think they lost money as a result long term, but I don't think you could have asked for a better year with how just pretty much it's starting to skyrocket pretty much at this point.
Are there any talents in the dojo now that are going to be debuting soon that you want to talk about?
Not in 1990. At this point, everyone that had started with the dojo in '89 had graduated and they were working. But in February '91, they're about to hold another talent search, and where 500 people end up applying to join FMW, and only 2 wrestlers get accepted into the dojo, and those 2 wrestlers would end up being Hayabusa and Mr. Ganosuke.
Jun Kasai, he had the finger injury at the beginning, on August 27th. I was actually at that show. He hit Violento Jack with a bottle, and it cut his right middle finger so deep that they almost had to cut off the finger. And since then, this has turned into a really bad injury for him, and it's been infected. He's had 4 surgeries. He's been in the hospital for 24 days of the past 35 days. He only got let out very briefly until the finger got infected, and he said that this is the longest time he's ever spent in to be under care of doctors in his entire career, which is crazy to think about. And I just wish him the best. He just had his daughter was recently born, but he's been taking off all of the advertising for the October shows. He's expected to make an appearance at the October 29th Osaka Bloody Halloween Freedom Show, but as a life, I've been, I saw his first appearance on Samurai Television in in late '97, and I've been a huge fan ever since. And it's really sad seeing a guy. He's not out with an injury to his knee or his back or anything. He's infected through his cuts and everything. And I just want to wish him the best of luck. And for anyone who doesn't know, I wanted to tell that story. So that's all. Brett, if you want to let people know, where can they find you online?
Bahu, BAHU, FMW.com, on Instagram, Bahu FMW World, and on Twitter at Bahu FMW.
Awesome, and you can find me at indiewrestlingintl.wordpress.com. I do twice a week indie deathmatch updates. I'll be writing I'll be writing a large article about Kasai's injury, and that's about it. So thank you guys very much for listening, and we will see you later. Yeah.